I'm Nina Shengold. I'm the author of the book Reservoir Year, A Walker's Book of Days, just published by Syracuse University Press. And I am delighted that it is now an audiobook. I got to work with James O'Connor from Soundbeat Access Audio and Brett Barry from Silver Hollow Audio, Kathleen McNenny, the wonderful narrator, and Steve Kester, who wrote music for it. We all met on a Zoom call with David Ross from one of the students on the Access Audio team, who had painstakingly gone through the whole book and highlighted all the unusual words, place names, people's surnames, strange foreign words I had somehow dropped into the text without realizing it. And we sorted out all the pronunciations. Ashokan Reservoir. This is the Ashokan Reservoir in the Catskills. And I am very, very glad that Reservoir Year is now an audiobook.
Hi, I'm Brett Barry, and I am the owner and operator of Silver Hollow Audio right here in the Catskills in Chichester. Welcome to this presentation on Reservoir Year as part of Emerson Week. I was fortunate to be a part of this project. It started when I went up for some meetings at Syracuse University pre-pandemic to talk about some of the things they're working on audio-wise. And we met with the publisher of Syracuse University Press, and one of the books they were really excited to get out there as one of the inaugural audiobooks was Reservoir Year. And it just so happens that, Reservoir Year, Reservoir is right in our backyard. So it made perfect sense that we should produce it, and not only that, but use as much local talent as possible. Obviously, Nina is Catskills based. I'm here in the Catskills. We spoke with Steve Kester of Two Dark Birds to create an original score for the audiobook. So it's not throughout, but there's segments where music really makes a lot of sense. And so Steve Kester and Josh Roy Brown and other people who are some of my favorite Catskillians were involved in creating and playing music for the audiobook. Also, the narrator, we wanted to go with a local narrator, Kathleen McNenny, who also lives right here in the Catskills, narrated the book, not from this studio where she normally would because of the pandemic, but she has her own space just down the road and was able to narrate and then send me files as they became available to edit from here. So it was a really collaborative local and regional effort between the Catskill people and the Syracuse people, but it wasn't in a traditional sense of all working in the same space. So we were all working in our own studios and creative spaces, and then putting it all together to go out to places like Audible and wherever you get your audiobooks, where it's now available. The other great thing about this project and all the projects that we're doing for Syracuse, this part of the libraries, which is called Soundbeat Access Audio, which is doing a whole bunch of different audio projects, is that we're working with Syracuse University's Inclusive View. And Inclusive View is students who have intellectual and developmental disabilities who are able to have a fully integrated college experience. So we are specifically working with all of our interns from that program, which has been really rewarding, and I think for both of us. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy the book, and you'll be seeing and hearing from other people who are involved with the project.
Preamble. I live in the foothills of the Catskills, 4 miles from the glorious Ashokan Reservoir. For a year, I walked by its side every day, in all kinds of weather, from pre-dawn to starlight. My usual path is a former roadbed on top of the reservoir's main dam. There's a small parking lot near the village of Olive Bridge, rimmed by wildflowers, hardwoods, and pines. You pass through a row of traffic barrier columns and take a few strides to the edge of the trees, and the world opens up. A panoramic vista of water, mountains, and sky. People stop in their tracks and gasp. I once heard an awestruck child cry out, "Is that the ocean? Mom, what is this place?" It's a good question. I spent a year trying to answer it, day after day after day. I was poised to turn 60, a birthday that can't help but rattle the ribcage. My daughter Maya was at college in Vermont, and I missed her bright energy daily. My parents were dwindling into their 90s, and my dog had died. Chris was my first dog, a not-so-golden retriever mix we adopted when Maya was a first grader with puppy lust.
It's the story of a year that I spent in this magnificent place, the Ashokan Reservoir in the Catskills, and went out every day, all times of day and all kinds of weather, sometimes by myself, sometimes with friends, and wrote about whatever I noticed. The book has beautiful artwork by Hudson Valley artist Kate McLaughlin, the cover painting, Carol Zaloom and Will Lytle, and I hope you buy a copy from an independent bookseller. Enjoy.
Day 14, September 28th, 6:20 p.m. I don't have many ground rules for this, but I don't carry paper and pad when I'm walking. I notice whatever I notice and memorize a few key words to help me remember. Here are today's: heron, cloak, veil, stillness, alchemy, which is either a very short poem or dialogue you might hear from a tarot reader at a Woodstock bar. I came to the res in an awful mood, 2 weeks into this practice and already resentful and bored with the notion of doing it over and over again for a year. What's the point? Can this really make one bit of difference? My house is too empty to stay in alone. I walk out to the stone bench and sit, watching the sunset glow turn the cloud wisps from Turner pastels to a brief, sudden flooding of neon-bright coral, then lavender gray. As the water gets calm, so do I. When I finally stand to walk back, a great blue heron angles over the water, its heavy big body in silent glide, to land at the water's edge. Hello everyone, my name's Kathleen McNenny, and I was the narrator of this beautiful book. And I've been asked to share a little bit about what the process was and what it's like for a narrator. So first of all, I am very lucky to live just down the road from Brett Barry, and he's who thought of me for this job. But unfortunately, we were in COVID, so I was not able to go to his beautiful and amazing soundproof studio and do all my recording there because we were all in quarantine. And so I had to record in my she shed. Now, the she shed is not a regulation-proof sound studio. So when it rained out, I would have to stop recording. If there was too much wind, I would have to stop recording. If there were people sawing down trees nearby, I would have to stop recording. If the lawn was being mowed, I would have to stop recording. So those were some of the challenges that I faced just because I was not in this amazing, studio that I normally would be working in. The other thing that made this process really so pleasant was that normally a narrator has to do all their own research. So I would have had to track down all the pronunciation of all of the rivers and towns and things around here that I would not have known how to pronounce. And so David Ross had done all that work for me. And so we got together as a team one night. We went through the whole book, and I wrote down all the pronunciations and was recording and keeping track of everything. So by the time that I would finally got to day 364 and some name would show up that I didn't know how to pronounce, I had all the notes already there, ready to help me out. So that was a joyful thing not to have to do. And then the other thing that was incredibly pleasant was that this was, because I recorded this during COVID, in a time when really I arrived to my quarantine feeling scared and a bit nervous and very much out of my body. with all the unknown things that were happening and what was happening to a lot of friends in my industry, in the theater industry in New York City. It was a bit overwhelming. And then this beautiful book came by. And this book is about getting out in nature and walking every day and just breathing and being present with yourself. And I found that as Nina was taking her walks and as I was narrating, I got to take those walks with her. And I found myself resettling in my body and calming down. And by the time I finished that book, one of the first things I did, I knew I was going to do it about halfway through. I thought, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to get up early before the sun comes up and I'm going to go to the reservoir and I'm going to take a walk and watch the sun rise. And I hope I see an eagle. And I did. And it was a beautiful, wonderful experience. So thank you to everyone at Syracuse Press. Above us, the clouds curl and part like living things. A shaft of blue sky emerges from turbulent gray and closes back up in an instant. It goes to my heart like an arrow. Some inchoate sense of peace overlaying our sufferings and storms. And I'm suddenly weeping, thinking of Sandy and Jeffrey and Tate, all the people I love who have died and who will die, the grief and the beauty that we can't hold. This is why people invented gods, trying to build a container for something too vast to contain. There's a storm swooping in from the west. Its veils lash down High Point and pummel the water. The photographer turns back reluctantly, heading back toward his car. I wait till the first drops start pounding. No drizzle, it goes from not raining to downpour in seconds, with high winds to match. I poke up my folding umbrella, which turns inside out in the wind. I decide to embrace getting wet. And then I hear thunder. It's January, for Christ's sake. It shouldn't be 40 degrees, and this should be a blizzard, not rain. And there certainly shouldn't be thunder. And if there is thunder, there's lightning. And standing exposed on the top of a dam between two metal guardrails, right next to a body of water, is pretty damn stupid. So back to my car I go, thunder booming around the far hills like Rip Van Winkle's ninepins. Good choice, since the rain sluicing off the hem of my parka has soaked through my pants and my long johns. It's worth every shiver. I feel like a happy drowned rat. Day 119, January 11th, 1 p.m. Cold wind and white caps, new snow on the Burroughs Range. 2 eagles fishing. Black-backed, gull-flying pirouettes. Brilliant blue sky with David Bowie in it.
Hey, I'm Steve Kester. I'm a songwriter and producer. My band is called Two Dark Birds. I live in the Catskills and I've recorded a bunch of albums over the past couple decades. I recently worked on a project that created some music that was inspired by the naturalist and Catskills writer John Burroughs. That's how I connected with Brett Berry, who brought me onto this fantastic project and introduced me to Jim and Nina. And they asked me to create some songs for the audiobook version of Reservoir Year. I read the book and was incredibly inspired by Nina's vignettes about walking around the Ashokan Reservoir. And I used her writing as well as some of my own wanderings over the past 10 or so years in the Catskills as a basis for putting together some songs and songlets for the project. And so Jim introduced me to Ian and asked me if I would mind partnering with Ian. And so Ian went through the book and he marked passages that he thought would work well with some music, and he noted the paragraph and the sentence and pulled out some key phrases, and then gave me some excellent notes on kind of what the emotional feel of the music for that passage might be. The notes were really helpful in guiding my process for putting together some songs, and I ended up writing mostly instrumental pieces that were pulled from those passages. One was called Freckle of Stars, there's lemon squeeze, and there's pine sap and honeysuckle, and these were all kind of phrases that were in the book, putting together some songs for this. And I wrote the song, and then I had the other musicians that I play with, Carrie Bradley Nevis played some fiddle, and Josh Roy Brown played some banjo and mandolin and lap steel, and Jason Mills did some percussion and some other stuff for it. I thought it was a great project. I really loved collaborating with Ian and Nina and the whole team. Would definitely be into working on a similar project in the future. I thought it was a cool learning experience for me, and I'm assuming kind of for everybody involved. So thank you.
I step out of the car. It's dead quiet. The sky's clear overhead, still covered with clouds to the east. I can't see Cassiopeia, where the shooting stars are supposed to originate. I set out in the dark. Within seconds, I see a short streak, and yes, I do gasp. A small voice in my head says, "Okay, you can go home now." A larger voice tells it to shut up. Distant flashes of heat lightning. Cool night air moving around me, a soundtrack of bullfrogs and katydids scrape. Another small streak. I stop walking and crane my neck, scanning from side to side. I tell myself I'll go home after 10 shooting stars. Or 12. I just want to see one really big one. One domed horizon white trail. Streak, streak. One after another. 9, 10. Okay, maybe 20. Then I get this crazy idea to stay here until I've seen 60 for my 60th year. The clouds are beginning to break up. The newspaper said there could be up to 200 per hour. 60 meteors sounds impossible. But when I get up to 30, I realize I'm going to do it. Come stiff neck, come boredom, come yawns and long pauses. Every time I think, "This is stupid, you've seen enough," I spot another. I hear a trout jump. A barred owl calls over the water again and again. Then another owl higher, a tenorish purr. Constellations and stardust. It's not about meteors, is it? It's about being part of the universe. Letting things go. Because loss is enormous, but love is infinite. I count 64 meteors in just under an hour. Number 57 is the best.